You grow up in a house where money is never discussed, not because it's private, but because there's nothing to discuss. Your father works long shifts driving a forklift. Your mother sits behind the front desk of a dental office she could never afford to visit as a patient. Every Friday night, bills are sorted across the kitchen table. Some get paid, some wait. You aren't poor enough for people to notice. You're just close enough to struggle every day. At school, you're different. While other kids dream about becoming athletes or celebrities, you're fascinated by business. You want to understand how companies work, where money goes, and why some people seem to play by a different set of rules. Then, one night, everything changes. You watch your father lose out on a promotion he deserved. Someone from outside gets the job. He doesn't complain. He just reaches for another spoonful of rice and continues eating. But sitting there at 16 years old, you make a promise to yourself. One day, you'll learn the system well enough to build one of your own. A year later, a successful entrepreneur named David visits your school to give a speech. Most students barely pay attention. You do after the event, you follow him into the parking lot and ask a question nobody else would dare ask. What part of your speech was actually true? David stops. What part do you think wasn't? You answer, the part about passion. Nobody builds something real on passion alone. Instead of getting offended, David becomes curious. He sends you a folder full of market research and tells you to find what's missing. By the next morning, you've found 4 major gaps. That single moment changes your life. For the next 18 months, you work with David for free. You analyze businesses, study markets, and learn lessons no classroom could ever teach. You discover something important. The people who do work nobody asked them to do eventually become the people everyone depends on. College comes next. You study business and computer science while working long hours and sleeping very little. You watch other students enjoy weekends, relationships, and freedom. You choose something else. You choose your future. At 21, you discover a problem hiding inside the logistics industry. Companies are losing millions because of inefficient systems. Most people ignore it. You don't. For 8 months, you build a solution from a tiny apartment. When you finally show it to David, he offers to invest $150,000 for 35% of the company. For the first time in your life, you tell him no. The math doesn't work. You believe the company is worth more. And for the first time, David smiles not as a mentor, but as someone who realizes his student has become a competitor. You graduate, start the company, raise funding, and begin building. The growth is explosive. By 24, you employ 180 people. By 25, nearly 500. Then comes the phone call, an acquisition offer, $2.9 billion. You accept. A few days later, the money arrives. You stare at the number on your screen for 40 seconds, then place the phone face down because something unexpected happens. Nothing. No fireworks, no overwhelming joy, no magical feeling of arrival, just silence. You spent years believing success would feel different. It doesn't. You buy your parents a house. Your father quietly walks through every room, touching the walls. Your mother cries in the kitchen. For the first time since the deal closed, something feels real. But the feeling doesn't last. The company changes. New executives arrive. The product evolves into something you barely recognize. The mission that once mattered becomes another corporate strategy. Eventually you leave, not because you failed, but because you no longer belong inside the thing you built. For the first time in years, you have everything: money, freedom, time. You try to relax, you take walks, read books, sleep longer, but comfort feels strangely uncomfortable. Because the hunger that built your success was never really about money. It was born years ago at a kitchen table covered with unpaid bills. It was born the night your father lost that promotion. And now, even though the problem has been solved, the hunger remains. 6 months later, you start another company. Not because you need the money, because you don't know how to stop. One day, sitting in a board meeting, your thoughts drift back to your father. You gave him everything he never had: the house, the retirement, the freedom to say no. You solved the problem that started your journey. Yet there's one thing he possesses that you still haven't found: contentment, the ability to sit at a table and believe the table is enough. And that's when you finally understand the same hunger that makes people successful often prevents them from feeling successful. The wound becomes the engine, and if the engine stops, so do they. Somewhere right now, another 16-year-old kid is sitting in a school assembly, taking notes while everyone else is half asleep. He thinks he's learning how to escape. What he doesn't know yet is that escaping and being free are not the same thing. And the distance between those two destinations is the part nobody talks about. That's the real story, and that's the journey nobody puts in the speech. Subscribe Smart Money Jack, because fixing your finances fixes more than your bank